All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully, everybody had a great weekend. So we'll go ahead and get started here. As I've mentioned, if it's your first time joining me, I start taking questions up to an hour before. That's because that's when the notice goes out to people. So if you came on here and you posted a question over the weekend, go ahead and repost it in here if you're on here with us, and we'll go ahead and get that answer. But I'm going to start with Jim S., who asks, how young can a student be to work through the 20-minute speed protocol? So I believe Jim is asking about the 20-minute distance fix. How old can you be? There's no age restrictions on it. Honestly, if you're capable of going through the program, then that's completely fine. If you have a youngster that you're helping move through the program, understand that they're your responsibility. We do have an age restriction on who can be a member of the website. I believe you have to be at least 13 years old, or you might need to be older than 13, so you might actually need to be 14. Don't hold me to that. I'm not exactly sure to be a member of the website, but if you have a youngster, young boy or girl that's getting into golf and wanting to get the most speed out of them, that's it's completely fine to have them to go through the things as well. A lot of this stuff that we do in the 20-minute distance fix, they're things that our kids are already doing anyway. That's what they say a lot of times. If you really want to get good at something, practice like you're a kid. Make it a game. Make it so it's not boring and things like that. So yeah, highly recommend for any ages. The only people it's really not for are people who just aren't capable of swinging as hard as they can. So if you have some physical limitations that stop you, maybe you have arthritic hips or things like that, things that are stopping you from swinging hard, the 20-minute distance fix is probably not for you. And honestly, golf may be tough for you just in general because of that. So yeah, you want to make, as long as you're physically able and capable, you can work through the 20-minute distance fix course. So Chris B says, when doing the 3,000 reps assignment in stable fluid spine 1.5, if I have the time and motivation to do all 3,000 reps in a day, holy cow, I couldn't imagine doing that many reps in a day. He says, should I do that? I would say no, you should not do that. The whole idea here is you're going to be spacing this out probably over the course of a few weeks, and that's if you're working really hard. So if you think about it, if you're doing 100 reps a day, if you worked hard at it every single day, that's 3 weeks basically. So no, it's not meant to be I think some people feel like it's that way, but the Toss Golf system is not meant to be gone through in just like a couple range sessions out on the course. That's just not the way that it works. You're training your neurological system to do something different. You're training different movements. It's like, they always say, it takes 21 days to build a habit. That's what we're trying to do. You can't ever get rid of a habit. You can only create new habits to overcome them. So, some people who've been on this office hours before have heard me talk about it this way. And a lot of people don't understand, like, we're training a movement. And, I equate it a lot to learning how to type. So when you first started learning how to type, you looked at the keyboard and you were pointing and pecking with your fingers, right? And you didn't know where all the keys were, and you had to look at the keyboard and see where they were. But eventually you started to memorize that and understand, okay, the T's over here, the P's over here. You were getting faster at the pointing and pecking. And then eventually you got to where you learned how to put your fingers on the keyboard in the correct way. And then you were, memorizing, but you're still looking at them. Think about how long it just took you to get to that point. Like, you're training your logic, and you did that every single day. Whenever at least I did when I was in school. We had our keyboarding class. We did it every single day where we learned how to type really well. In the beginning, it's hard. It's frustrating. I made lots of mistakes. I was very, very slow at the backspace key a lot. The same thing's going on when you're learning a new movement in the golf swing. You're training your body to do something that it doesn't know how to do yet. And it takes time. You can't really expect to, if I spent the entire day learning how to type, that I'm going to go from not knowing how to type at all to being able to type 70 words a minute. It just doesn't work that way. You get to train your body to do it. So my best recommendation would be I would do 100 to 200 reps a day, and I'd make sure that those are good reps that you are after every I always like to think about it this way. There's a good acronym for this when you're doing reps. It's plan, act, review. It's actually from a science journal that I read. I picked it up from, it was actually a golf science journal out there that I read and picked that up from. And it's very, let me turn this off real quick. And what they talked about in there is something that's called plan, act, review. It relates to golf, right? Acronym is PAR. So plan would be before every single repetition that you take, you're going to plan exactly what you're going to do. So your plan is to get in the right spine angle position, and then you perform the action. That's the A part. And then afterwards, you have to review that rep and, think about, okay, did I do it right? That could mean looking on video and making sure that you're in the right position. That could be based on a feeling. It could be a coach there telling you that you're right there. So it's plan, act, review on every single repetition that you're doing. I see too many times people just out there, they're just going through the motions. They get in the spine angle, they take a swing. They just take a swing over and over and over. It's just kind of going through the motions. It's like, when I played sports growing up, we were out there, coach would get on us. He's like, you guys are just going through the motions. You guys aren't like using your head and actually doing this. That's what you need to do when you're trying to change things with your golf swing as well. You can't just go through the motions and mindlessly kind of do the motions and not think about what you're doing. You have to actually train your brain how to do it. And that's why we're doing it. And it doesn't mean that you need to do 3,000 reps. You might need to do 300 reps and you'll be good to go. 3,000 reps is really just a suggestion that we have. And the reason why is just that's what it takes most people to get to where it becomes second nature to them, where it feels wrong to do something else. That's usually as many as it takes. But for you, it might take 10,000 reps. If you're in a place where you still don't feel comfortable with it after 3,000 reps, you may need to go do more reps. But if you're in a place where after 500 reps, it feels comfortable, and then you move on to something else, and you're still doing, the stable fluid spine, where you're supposed to be, then at that point, it's pretty much ingrained. You want to keep an eye on it, make sure that it stays that way. But everybody's a little bit different. So no, I don't recommend doing 3,000 reps in one day. You're not going to be able to go through the Toss Golf system, the entire thing, in like a week. It was what kind of sounds like what you're wanting to do, or a couple weeks. It's going to take some time. It's going to take repetition, and go out there and have fun and play too. Like the whole reason why you're doing this is to become a better golfer. So go out there and have fun with it. And I wouldn't be trying to do 3,000 reps. I mean, I can't imagine how many hours it would take to do that in one day. That you're not gonna be 100% the whole time. You're gonna be kind of lackadaisical going through the motions after so many reps. So if you do it in that way that I was talking about, you'll get a lot more out of it, and it will become second nature to you much quicker. All right, so let me get a drink real quick. So David F says, Q, I struggle with my weight center of mass moving forward too much on the downswing. Please talk about when and how to get pressure into the left heel. So it sounds like you don't have any issue getting the weight to the left heel. So I'm a little bit confused about your question, because you said that you slide. Well, that would be putting pressure in your left heel. So it sounds like you might be falling back. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but what I see with most people, the issue is that they don't shift their weight soon enough. They wait way too long. So what ends up happening is we'll be at the top of the swing. Let me angle this down a little bit. We'll be at the top of the swing, and we don't have any momentum going to the lead side. So we'll be right here. No momentum's moving to the lead side. And then the arms start down, and we end up kind of falling back, and we don't get into a good impact position. So what we need to do is we need to get to where our momentum's starting to move to our lead side. We're getting that there's going to be a little bit of a slide there. There is some lateral movement. It's not this, but there is a little bit of lateral movement that's going to get you to your lead side. And then once you start that downswing, you got pressure in that lead leg. And now you are pushing into the ground and rotating open as you're coming into impact. I see most of the time what I see is, or when people are struggling with their weight shift, is that they're just, the arms are starting down before they get any momentum moving to their lead side. Then all the momentum that's going to their lead side as they're coming it down is from the arms swinging in front of, is from the arms, the momentum of the arms. That's what's bringing everything through. You want it to be start here. This is what's bringing everything through. The hips you're putting that pressure into the ground. That's what's turning the hips, and then that's what's turning the shoulders. The shoulders are what's bringing the arms down. The arms are what bringing the club through. You want it to happen in that sequence and not the opposite. I see too often it basically we get here and then the sequence starts from the top down instead of from the bottom up. So that's basically what the feeling is that you want to have. And I apologize for the camera is acting a little bit weird today. I think YouTube made some changes and now for some reason it's like zoomed in. Whereas before it was more of a kind of a fisheye type lens. You could see a lot more. But if you want to work through that great drill, that'll really help you to get that weight shift to the lead side much better. It's a drill. It's called the step drill. It's in several videos on the website. It's in the 20-minute distance fix that I talked about earlier. But yeah, if you want to go and find a really great video that has that step drill in there where Clay demonstrates that step drill, you'll want to go in the upper right-hand corner. There's a search box there. Just search downswing. That's all you need to do is search the word downswing, and it'll be the third video down. It'll be how to start the downswing. It'll have some yellow lettering in there in the thumbnail. It'll say how to start the downswing in yellow there. That's the video there that's going to help you understand how to do that step drill. Can't demonstrate in here. I just don't have enough room, and for some reason the camera is like super zoomed in on me. So Joe, check out that video. I think it'll really help you with that. So Neil D says, I have a great difficulty getting out of greenside bunkers. And if I do, keeping control of the ball flight. Can you help with some simple guidelines to effective bunker play? So I would recommend going to our wedge system, the wedge course. Clay talks about bunker play in there and just kind of like the basic setup and thing. But I will tell you, what I see most of the time. The biggest issues that I see with bunker games, number one, is we don't open up the face enough. I see too many players, they'll open the face just a little bit. We got to open up the face a ton. So if I angle this down, the easiest way to kind of do that is if this is my normal grip. So I have a fairly neutral grip. So that would be that'd be a square club face there. I'm going to literally turn this to where it's 45 degrees open. There you go. I'm turning that in my hand. So now when I put that on the ground here, I don't know why it's angled like that. Yeah, they mess with this. I got to somehow get this back. But anyway, you can see on the ground there, I'm shooting almost straight up to the sky. So most people, they just open it up just a little bit, like just that much. We need it to where it's basically pointing up to the sky. So that's number one. The reason for that is we need to be able to use the bounce of the wedge. That's the biggest point of this flange on here. This right here, that's the bounce. That's the whole idea of that, is to allow it to get through the sand. So we have to really open up the face to be able to use that to its ability. Otherwise, that's going to tend to want to dig. And that might be part of the issue that you're having with it, is that club's going in and it's digging into the sand. It's kind of getting lost in the sand and you're not having any control over what's going on. So that's number one. Number two is swinging hard. You've got to hit it with some speed. I know it feels unnatural because, we're taking a big swing for a shot that's not very far. It's not very long, but we're hitting through sand, right? So that's slowing it down, and we're not making direct contact with the ball. We're making contact with the sand, and then the sand is pretty much blasting the ball out of there. So that's number one. I see that's the second piece is I just see people, they don't swing hard enough. So what I would recommend doing, open up that face, get that face really opened up 45 degrees at least. So, if I have it like that, open it up like that, about 45 degrees. So that face is going to look like it's pointing straight up to the sky. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to really accelerate through there. I'm going to really feel like I'm going to take a big swing and really accelerate through there. I'm going to blast the sand. I'm going to feel like I'm coming down and I'm just popping this sand with the club. And that's really, you just need to go out there and do that. Go out and practice that, because the sand is actually very, very easy. As long as you have a decent lie in a bunker, it's actually much better to be in a bunker than it is thick rough. I'll take a bunker shot instead of thick rough any day of the week because it's predictable. you can predict it. All it does is it takes a little bit of practice. So hopefully you have a practice facility that you can go to. Bunker play or pretty much any shot that you don't know how to do, it's not something that I'm just going to be able to tell you, oh, just open up the face and swing harder, and you're going to have total confidence when you go out to the course. No, you have to go practice it. You have to go see what happens when you hit 6 inches behind the ball versus 8 inches behind the ball versus 2 inches behind the ball. See what happens with those shots. But the two big keys there are, number one, open up that face, and two, do not decelerate. You got to make sure that you accelerate through there. You got to be swinging hard, because if you don't, that's just going to lead to really poor shots. You're not going to have any control of it. So go out there and practice it. Practice uphill, side hill, downhill, all of those lies. That's how you get really good at it, is you have to change what you're doing whenever you go out there to effectively, vary it up. Because otherwise you're only going to be able to hit this one kind of bunker shot. And it's very rare that you're going to have that one bunker shot every single time. You might have it every now and then, but not every single time. You're going to have, the sand's going to be a little bit different everywhere. It's going to be, you're going to have an uphill lie, a side hill lie. You're going to have all kinds of things going on. You're going to have where the ball is just sitting down a little bit. You're going to have fried eggs and things like that. So you just have to go out and practice these things, and that's how you get good at them. So take an afternoon, a couple hours. Go out, bring some balls, draw lines in the sand so you can see where your club is entering the sand in relationship to the ball. And that way, you're entering the sand 6 inches behind the ball. If you're entering the sand 2 inches behind the ball, you're going to know what's going on there. But those are the two big keys: open up the face and swing hard. And if you do that and try to lay that club on the sand, really allow that club to glide through there, you'll start hitting some much better bunker shots. All right, so Joseph D says, hi, I keep trying to shallow out my driver, but still too steep. Can you suggest something to help me? So what I would recommend, the biggest recommendation I can give you is try to exaggerate it as much as you possibly can. So what would exaggerating the shallowing of the club mean? As much as you can. So this would be, when we're talking about shallowing out the club, and I assume this is what you're talking about, Joseph, we're talking about in the transition. So in the transition, you just pretend this is a driver. In the transition here, I want to get this butt into the club to be pointing at or a little bit outside of the golf ball. That would be ideal. And what that will allow me to do, that will allow me to stay in my posture. I don't have to stand up, because if the club is like this is steep. This is what he's talking about. If the club is like that and it's steep, then, you have to typically stand up to get that club to come back down onto plane. Either that, or you'll typically kind of end up coming over the top, or some sort of mixture of the two there. But what we need to do is we need to get this club to where it's shallowed out so we can stay in our posture. So what I see a lot of people when they're working on shallowing out the club, what they do is they'll take a swing where they shallow out the club perfectly. They do it, they get it right and shallowed out. It's just a little practice swing. And then they'll go to hit the ball and they come down like that. It's super steep. Well, what they're doing in their practice swing is and it seems completely logical that you would try to take a practice swing that's exactly what you want to do. But if you're having trouble, you're seeing in your actual swing, even getting it close to that position, what do you have to do? You have to adjust your feeling to get the desired result that you want. That's a lot of what golf is. It's just adjusting your feeling to get the desired result that you want. That's a lot of what it is. If you can do that, you're going to be able to make big changes in your golf swing. So what would that mean? If you feel like, you're coming down and the club's like this, you feel like it's just perfectly shallowed out and it's in a beautiful spot, but the reality is that it's like this. You're coming down like that. What do you have to do to adjust your feeling to get the desired result? I would do this. I would get that. I would feel like this club is like this, like it's dang near parallel to the ground. Really, really exaggerate that. And that's going to help you get the feeling of what you're trying to do. You know what the worst thing that's going to happen if you try to exaggerate something? The worst thing that can happen is that you actually accomplish it. That's really the worst thing that can happen. Most likely what's going to happen is you're going to shallow it a little bit more. You're going to get closer to where you want to be. But, there are cases where, hey, you got it to really, really, you've done it enough times and you've exaggerated enough times that you actually get into this position where you're overdoing it. Well, in that case, just ease off it a little bit. And it's going to be easy to ease off of it because It's going to be more toward what you're comfortable with. So that's what I would recommend. Is I'd recommend not just trying to get it in the perfect spot in your practice swing. Exaggerate it as much as you possibly can. Get that club in the downswing, in the transition here, in the downswing. Get that club to where it's dropping way behind you. Feel like it's way behind you, like it'd be scraping up against a wall behind you. That's what you want to feel like is happening. Almost like you're painting, like you're putting a downstroke on. You're really turning that doorknob to the right with both hands. If you're a right-handed player, you're turning the doorknob to the right in the downswing. That's what's going on right there. So all of those things, put those together, and whatever feeling works best for you to really, really exaggerate what's going on, because that's what you got to do. Don't try to just do it little by little. Try to really, really exaggerate it. And then if you overdo it, just ease off of it. It's way, way easier to do it in that fashion. And again, that's the move course. Doing that tennis racket drill, Joseph, doing that tennis racket drill and exaggerating that as much as you possibly can, that's really going to get you in the right spot. All right, so Robert S. says, as you make the power turn correctly, what's the sequence to start the downswing? So I just talked about this a little bit ago, a few minutes ago. It starts from the ground up. It's from getting that pressure in your lead foot to the lead side. That's getting the weight shift at the right time. And then that's the pressure into the grounds, what gets the hips moving. What gets the hips moving gets the rib cage going. What gets the rib cage going gets the shoulders going. The shoulders going gets the arms going. The arms and the hands and the club. It all has to happen in that sequence. Otherwise, it's not going to be as efficient of a strike. You can hit the golf ball doing it, in a jumbled up sequence or from the top down. But what's going to happen is you're going to come over the top. You're going to flip. It's not going to be very efficient. To have the most efficient strike, meaning you're able to transfer as much force as you possibly can into this handle here with your hands. In order to be able to do that, it all has to start from the ground up in the downswing. So that step drill that I was talking about, that's what's going to help you get the right sequence. That's the best drill for a weight shift and sequencing and, being able to swing in the most efficient way. Go to that how to start the downswing video, search it in there, upper right-hand corner, just search the word downswing. And it's actually a video. It's just called how to start the downswing. And Clay demonstrates that step drill in that video. So I highly recommend checking that out. It'll be the third video down in your search results. All right, so James Q says, on earlier office hours, you seem to indicate that forward hip bump on downswing is a bad thing. I thought starting with the hips was necessary. Can you please clarify this? Yes, so the hips are a big part of what's starting the downswing. It's the hip slide that we don't want. We don't want to be sliding in no rotation, because a lot of times that happens. We get the hip slide and then the arms just fly in front like that. There's a little bit of a hip bump, just a small bit. But as soon as you get that to your lead side, you're pushing this hip back. So this hip's getting pushed back and out of the way so you can rotate through impact. So there is a little bit of a hip bump, but we don't want to continue to slide and get too far. That's where the compression line comes in, right? So our compression line, we want our lead shoulder, lead hip, and ankle to all be in a straight line, slightly angled away from the target at impact. You're sliding your hips and you're not rotating. What most likely is going to happen, one, your hips are going to be pretty square at impact. You're going to come into impact and you're going to have kind of that, we see that goat humping action that we talk about. You get that where your back kind of flattens out and you kind of do this. You're standing up, your shoulders are square. Everything's kind of square to the golf ball at impact, and you get that flip through there. What I see in a lot of amateur players is that exact movement. Well, a lot of that's from, it's from a lot of things, but essentially we can see that from the hip bump. We get that hip bump to the lead side. Now we're locked up here and we can't rotate. So we got to get that little bump to the lead side. And then as soon as we get that pressure in that lead side, we got to be pushing down into the ground, pushing that hip back and up. And that's going to allow you to open things up so that you can release that club out in front. All right, so James Q, again, has another question. Says, can you please go through the thumb down at impact in the move? Thumb down and impact in the move. This seems like it would take perfect timing. Hope it's okay to ask a question. So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the thumb down impact in the move. So what we're talking about with the move is 1, shallowing out the club, and 2, squaring that face earlier. So it doesn't take perfect timing for that to happen. It actually makes the move makes the golf swing less timing based. It allows you to keep that club face square longer through the impact zone, because what's happening when you flip the club, this club face is you're coming down steep. This club face is usually wide open, and then what happens is that impact we flip it through, and that face goes from open to close very, very quickly. So it becomes very, very timing based. Whereas if we shallow out the club, and now we get that club face squaring earlier, we're doing this action. If you see with my lead wrist, I'm turning that handle down. I think that's kind of what you might be getting confused with something else. But essentially, that's what we're trying to do in the move. So trying to turn that handle down. So what that's doing is that's getting the club face square earlier. So now I can rotate more into impact. And this face goes from open to close a lot less quickly. That's probably not grammatically correct, but it's not as quickly, doesn't rotate as fast through impact. It's more square, longer through the impact zone, which leads to more consistency. And you're also going to get a much more stable impact, because your force, the force that you're putting into the handle, is going to be leading the mass, which is the club head. When you flip, your club comes through like this, and a lot of times the mass is leading the force, and that's going to lead to some unstable impact. So if you think about it in this sense, like if I'm dragging something, pulling something, right? So this is the force leading the mass. You can see how that just follows in a straight line when I do that. But when I go the other way, it's the mass leading the force. It's not going to be as stable. It's going to tend to want to squiggle around and go everywhere. Where if I pull it this way, it'll go right in a straight line. It'll be much more stable. Same thing's happening at impact. When you come into impact and you are like this, you're flipping that club through like that, it's much less stable at impact. Whereas if I come into impact and I'm like this, I got my force leading the mass here, I'm going to have a much more stable impact, and I'm going to hit the ball a lot more consistently and much better. So keep that in mind when you are working on through some stuff. So not sure if that exactly answers your question, James, but if you would, if that's not quite right, so maybe kind of retype it or tell me exactly what you mean so I can help the best way I can. So Keith B says, this is a question about driver setup. Some believe that the driver club head should be more center in the stance at setup, so roughly 4 inches behind the ball, and then so that the shoulders are more easily squared up during the swing. Please comment. It's completely total preference. You do not hit the golf ball with your setup, right? So setup, you're going to see a lot of different players setting up in different ways. There are ways that you can set up that make it a little bit easier for you to square up. So if you find that setting up 4 inches behind the ball makes it easier for you to get the shoulders in a position to get that club to come down on plane, then who am I to tell you that it's wrong, or who is any other person to tell you that it's wrong? It's totally personal preference. It's not what I like to do. I like to set up the club right to the golf ball. And everybody's, built a little bit differently as well. I have pretty long arms. I'm 5'11". My arms are pretty darn long for my height. So my hands hang a little bit lower than what most people do or they are my height. So, I'm going to be setting up a little bit differently than what you do. Someone who has shorter arms, it might be more comfortable for you to set up with the club more in the middle of your stance. It's not. It's really about personal preference and what allows you to hit the ball the best. So it's completely up to you. So I like to set up with the club head at the golf ball, but I've seen a lot of people set up with the club head a little bit more behind the golf ball because they're in more of an angled away position. And if they have that club set up right there and they have it kind of resting on the ground, a lot of times what happens is it kind of drags on the ground. So, and also if you kind of hover the club head, before, it'd be just fine to have that at the golf ball as well, because you're not going to be as likely to kind of drag that club on the ground and have that interference in the backswing. It's all personal preference. That's kind of the beauty of the Top Speed Golf system. These are the only things that really matter the most. you're going to look on tour and you're going to see a lot of tour players that have the club up to the golf ball, and you're going to see some tour players that have it 2 inches behind. You're going to see some that have it 3 inches behind. You're going to see all different things going on there, but you're not going to see that's different is you're going to see all of them doing the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system. And those are the things that are the most important. Everything else is it's just dialing it in. Those are the things that don't really matter that much, and or are just completely personal preference, what works the best for you. All right, so let me scroll up here. Got a lot of questions to get. So John R. says, I'm working on 3 weeks to increase swing speed. How can I apply this to my irons best drills? So, you're working on, you're raising your club head speed. It's not just with your driver. That's going to, as you raise your club head speed using your driver, that's going to translate to your irons as well. So there aren't any specific drills that are going to increase your swing speed with your irons. It's the same drills with the driver that are going to do with your irons. So as you raise your club head speed and you are training your neurological system to swing faster, maybe you get up to before you were at 90 miles per hour with your driver, and maybe you swung your 7-iron at 80 miles per hour or 75 miles per hour, whatever it might be. Maybe you were in that area. Well, if you get your club head speed with your driver up to 100 miles per hour, your 7-iron is going to move up too. It's not going to stay at 75. It's going to jump up to the 80s most likely too. So there isn't anything you need to do drills wise to get the club head speed up with the irons. You just, if you raise it with your driver, it's going to go up with your irons as well. So Dennis G says, I've noticed that my left hand faces somewhat skyward instead of toward the target at impact. I tend to have a stronger grip and have been using the move to close the club face. What should I be working on to correct this? Thanks. So honestly, it's not that, if you have a really strong grip, your hand's most likely going to be pointing up to the sky a little bit. It's more about what the club head is doing at impact. So if I angle this down, I can kind of show you the difference. So that's why you can't always look at, a specific tour player. Let's say a tour player has a weak grip, and this would be a weak grip, meaning I have the thumb going straight down the shaft here. That's would be a weak grip. The V is kind of pointing straight up to my left ear, basically. So that's going to be a weak grip. If I come into impact and I turn this handle down and I get forward shaft lean in a square club face at impact, look at my wrist. My lead wrist is in a bent down position like this, because this is what I needed to do to get forward shaft lean and square the face up. So that's the position that I needed to be in right there. Now, let's say I have a very strong grip. Well, I'm going to go extreme. I'm going to say, I don't know how strong your grip is, but if I have a square club face there, now I've got this V is kind of pointing back over here to my shoulder. This would be a pretty strong grip. This is stronger than what I usually have as I'm coming in. So now if I come into impact, I have forward shaft lean and a square club face. Look at my wrist. My wrist is it's not in that bent down position like it was. It's kind of in the upward sky position. So what you need to do is you need to look at what your club head is doing. Look at, are you releasing this club out in front 45 degrees, or are you releasing it right here? So you need to look at, do you have forward shaft lean and a square club face? That's the most important thing. And however the wrist position, whatever position your wrist is in to make that happen, that is what's correct for you. So it really just depends. If you have a really strong grip, you're more likely going to have a grip or the appearance of the back of the left hand kind of pointing more up to the sky because of that. So I wouldn't look at your wrist and say that that's completely wrong. I would look at, where are you releasing the club, and do you have forward shaft lean and a square face at impact? If you do, then you're in good shape. If you don't, then continue to work on the move, because most likely what's going on is you might be coming down a little bit steep in the downswing, and or not turning that handle down enough to get the club face square with forward shaft lean at impact. So what you should be working on to correct it, if that is the case, what's going on, is to continue to work through the move. It just takes time and repetition to really get the best of that and to start getting that to show up in your swing. Like I said, I think a lot of people think that, they can be just told what to do, and then you just go out to the range and knock it out, and you'll be swinging like a pro like that. Yeah, I know that seems kind of silly when I say it that way, but I think a lot of people think that. I think a lot of people think that they can just go out to the range and be like, well, I'm just going to go and I'm going to do the move, and now I'm going to have forward shaft lean. It just doesn't work that way. You got to go out there and just try to get a little bit better every single time and try to get the club to shallow out more. And if you exaggerate things as much as you possibly can, that'll get you moving more in the right direction. All right, so let's keep moving through here. Mark B says, can you please discuss tension in this golf swing? I have a hard time staying tension-free while trying to stay connected in my arms, keep my left arm straight, and hit impact in straight line release position. So it sounds like you're trying to swing like way too rigid and way too much like a robot. I think that's a problem a lot of people get. I know a lot of people, when they're trying to keep their left arm straight, they don't swing tension free. They have a lot of tension because they're trying to keep that left arm straight. So the left arm being straight, that is a total myth. You do not have to keep your left arm straight. Look at Brooks Koepka, bent left arm throughout the swing. Jordan Spieth, bent left arm throughout the swing. Lee Westwood, bent left arm throughout the swing. Jamie Sadlowski, bent left arm throughout the swing. There's a lot of really great players out there who have a bent lead arm throughout the swing. It is total myth. It's a total myth that you have to keep that straight. So if naturally you don't need, if this feels more comfortable for you to have and you have less tension in your arms, if you have a little bit of bend in that lead arm, that is completely fine. Do that. That's your own swing signature. These are the things, like I was talking about a minute ago, it's, whatever is the most comfortable for you. The things that only really matter the most are the things that are in the Top Speed Golf system as far as technique is concerned. It seems like a lot of people in the office hours today are very concerned with things that really don't matter that much in the golf swing. And that's kind of what we're all about. We want you to focus on the things that matter the most. So that way, when you're spending a lot of time working on something and changing something, it's on something that's going to actually help you with your game, as opposed to something that may actually make you worse, because it sounds like you're being too tense. So what I'd recommend doing is just relax, allow your arm to bend a little bit. That's completely fine. And take a more relaxed and more athletic approach to the swing, and just worry about the pieces that matter the most in the Top Speed Golf system. So what I'd recommend doing as far as tension is concerned, a lot of it starts in the hands. If you're putting a death grip into that club at address, you're going to have some tension. So, at address, very light grip pressure, like a 2 out of 10, very, very light. Now, you're not going to be able to maintain that throughout the swing, because as you start bringing that club back, you're going to have to put more pressure into it, because in order to be able to hold on to it. If you try to hold it like a baby bird or a tube of toothpaste throughout the swing, you're going to end up letting that club fly at the top, and we don't want to be doing that. So nice and relaxed at address, relaxed arms. You're going to see a lot of tour players. They do this with their arms a lot. They kind of shake out their arms. They're trying to get relaxed. You see them kind of do things with their shoulders and their back and things like that. That's them trying to stay kind of relaxed and things like that. So you can do some of those. That'll help you stay relaxed and nice and loose. And then when you go to approach the golf ball, you don't want to have a ton of tension in these hands. Very, very light grip pressure at address. And then once you start that club, you can start putting more pressure into it as you're bringing it back. And then try to feel like, as you're coming into impact, that with the first 3 fingers here in your hand, you really feel like you're putting more pressure into the grip there, like you're trying to pop the top off of this grip. There's actually a great drill from the 20-minute distance fix where Clay talks about, it's like rip, rip, or drip, where you try to pop the top off of there. That's going to help you really push that handle through and be able to get some good speed. So that's the main things there. It sounds like you're just trying to swing too rigid. So I just try to relax. If your arms bend a little bit, they bend a little bit. No big deal. Nothing wrong with that. And, just allow that to happen. It's not, you're going to hit the ball better, most likely, by just virtue of being more relaxed. All right. So Chris B says, so don't move on to other videos in spine until I complete the specific drills in each section, even if you take a few weeks. Correct. I mean, you can go and watch the videos. I'm just saying you can't. I think Chris might have had that original question earlier in the office hours when he was asking about, should he complete all 3,000 reps in one day? So you can move on and watch the other videos. I'm just saying don't, make sure that you complete all the drills and make sure that it's second nature to you. Whatever, the level one, make sure that you're nice and angled the way I address. Like that's a second nature feeling for you until, you can watch other videos, but don't like move on to and do other drills until you have mastered that piece, and then you move on to the next one. So you can watch all the videos as much as you want. It's just a matter of completing the drills. You need to make sure that you complete the drills before moving on to level 2 and actually working on the drills in that video. All right. So Robert B says, what happens when you do not start and stay in the tilted spine position throughout the swing? By that, I mean, what happens to indicate you didn't start and stay in the tilted spine? Well, first of all, you'll be looking at on camera. So I'll be looking on camera and seeing if you are staying in your stable fluid spine. Make sure that you're nice and angled away at address, angled away at the top, and then a little bit more angled away as you're coming into impact. If you don't, so here's some things that can happen a lot of times. One, if you're moving your spine all over the place, your head, your eyes are moving all over the place, it's going to be hard to hit the golf ball very consistently because your head and your eyes and everything's it's not stable. It's going to be just hard to be very consistent. You're going to have a hard time getting center face contact. You're going to have a hard time getting this club to come down on plane. Another thing that happens, let's say you go up to the top, and I see this quite often, and I'm angled toward the target at the top of the swing. What tends to happen in the downswing is I'm going to fall away, and when I fall away, I end up chunking it, topping it, or things like that. So that's another thing that can happen. So what you want to make sure that you do, nice and angled away, get nice and loaded up, and then get to your lead side, and then more angled away as you're coming into impact. And that's going to get you this spine position at impact is really the most important because that's going to get you in the position to release that club out in front. Because if your spine, let's say your spine is vertical at address, you're going to tend to release that club right at the golf ball, and you're going to hit a lot of chunks, a lot of tops. You're going to dig a lot of trenches into the ground. So there's all kinds of things that be going on. So it's really, really important for your consistency to have that spine angle nice and angled away. And as Chris mentioned, he was asking if he could go on to watch other videos. I recommend that you do watch other videos so that you get an understanding of what it is and where you're headed and why you're doing it. Because Clay kind of goes over it as you're working through there. All right. So Chris B says, okay, got it. Great explanation. All right. Ronnie D says, on backswing, what does the end of the grip point? I have heard ball line, outside of ball line. So on the backswing, what does the end of the grip point? So I'm thinking he's talking about like right here at the top of the swing. Where does this end of the grip point? It really just depends. Like you can be a little bit across the line. You can have the club a little bit laid off. It only matters how the club is coming into impact. So, if you were way across the line and then in the downswing, this club drops way under plane, it may help you to get this club to be more shooting, down the target line in that area, parallel to the target line to help you get that club to come back down on plane. Well, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong. You look at Freddie Couples, for example. If you haven't been to the opening drive on our course, Clay goes over Freddie Couples swings. I tell you what, he does a lot of things that a lot of people would call wrong. He has a cupped left wrist at the top. He goes way across the line, but obviously, he's won a lot of money and won a lot of tournaments on tour. He's Masters champion, right? So, he's a little bit across the line. It's not. You don't hit the ball with the top of your swing. You hit the golf ball at impact. It only matters what's happening at impact. Everything else you do in your swing is to get a better impact position. So if you are across the line at the top of the swing and you have a great impact position, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're across the line at the top of the swing and you swing, this club comes down and swings way too much from the inside, you get a lot of snap hooks and blocks out to the right. Well, it might be beneficial for you to work on getting that club to be more in line with the target or even laid off a little bit at the top. So it really just depends. Everybody's a little bit different, but there's no specific place that it has to point. What you're going to say is ideally it would be parallel to the target line, because when you pull down, then there's no momentum moving in any direction. So if I'm laid off like this, well, what's going to happen when I pull down is the club may want to come down steep. So there'd be momentum maybe moving in that direction. Or if I'm way across the line at the top, when I pull my hands this way, when I start pulling my hands, what's going to happen is that club's going to want to go in line with the force that I'm pulling it down with, and it may drop a lot to the inside. So it really just depends. But for some people, having this across the line a little bit helps them to swing the club a little bit from the inside, when otherwise they might swing over the top or too much out to in. So it's really just specific to the person. All right, so Tate E, and again, there's a lot of questions today, and we have about 13 minutes left. I don't know how many questions are left on here, but I'm going to do my best to get to everybody. So I apologize if I don't get to everybody today, but I will do my best. Tate E says, I recently finished the move section of TSG. However, now I'm having golf shots left at much higher frequency than before. What should be the cause of having my shots now so much left? So sounds like you're still flipping the club as you're coming through impact. So you're still squaring the face by pushing, or trying to square the face by pushing this trail hand through. And so you're turning the handle down and you're pushing the hand through. So that's what happens when you get that club face to go left. So I would first make sure that you are shallowing out the club, because if you're not shallowing out the club, you're going to flip and you're going to have to push the right hand through to get the club to the golf ball, because you have to stand up to get that club to come back down on plane. So if I'm coming down steep, in order to get this club to come back down plane, I'm going to stand up. When I stand up, I'm going to flip. So if you flip and you turn the handle down, that face is slammed shut. I mean, that's exaggeration, but you see what I'm saying there. So you got to make sure that you're shallowing out the club. It could be that you're just used to squaring up the club face still with this trail hand coming in like that. And if you turn it down and do that, that face is going to be slammed shut. So I'd be looking at your swing on camera and making sure that you're getting forward shaft lean, make sure that you're still shallowing out the club, because what turning down the handle does, that's what squares up the club face when you have forward shaft lean. If I come into impact, I have forward shaft lean, I'm turning this handle down. You can see with my hands here, I'm turning that handle down to square up the club face. If I turn that handle down, keep those wrist angles the same, and I don't have forward shaft lean, that's a closed club face. If I come in and I flip and I have a square club face, but I just push my hands forward, now I have an open club face. Turning the handle down, squares it up. So you're kind of it sounds like you're at the end of the spectrum where you're coming in, you're flipping the club, you're turning the handle down, and you're flipping, which is closing the club face. So I would recommend making sure that you're shallowing out the club. If you're not sure what to do or need me, I'm just kind of guessing what's going on. I do offer unlimited swing reviews. So if you're interested in working with me and seeing what that's all about, go ahead and click the link above the video. But it sounds like that's what's going on. You probably just need to do more drills where you're focusing on getting the club to shallow out and getting that forward shaft lean position at impact. This trail hand position is most likely still going like this through impact instead of being in that turn down position through impact. So John C says, would you please talk about shoulders, hips separation to start the downswing? Thanks. Yeah. So, to start the downswing, you definitely want the shoulders to start first, the hips to start first. The hips are going to start, and then the torso, and then the shoulders are going to start. Everybody's going to have a little different as far as the separation is concerned, how many degrees of separation is going on. Everybody's built a little bit differently, but most people can get about a 45 degree separation of the hips and the shoulders. So that would be, mostly in your thoracic spine. So as you're starting down, you may see how the hips come in and they're pretty square, but the shoulders are about 45 degrees closed still. And then everything starts to catch up and line up in the straight line release position. So there's actually a great video on the website where you can see physically where Clay shows this. He puts a club across his shoulders, alignment stick through his belt loops, and he shows kind of what we call the momentum train, starting that momentum train with the hips, the shoulders, and the arms. He talks about how the trains are on top of each other, 60-mile-per-hour trains on top of each other. They add up, once you get another one on top of another one. So highly recommend that video. If you just search momentum train, you'll find that video that I'm talking about, and you'll be able to see all those. All right, so Al N says, what have you found to be the best full swing training aid? Probably the best full swing training aid. A lot of people don't realize that this is a training aid, but your phone really is the video. There's nothing much better than video. I know a lot of people don't think of it as a training aid, but it's absolutely a training aid. The best training aids out there are the ones that give you information after the fact. So video, Flight Scope, Swing Caddy 2, anything that gives you information after you've performed the action is what's the best training aid. And the reason why they're great training aids is because it forces you to learn to make that happen. So like if you are working on your swing speed and you're working with Swing Caddy 2, it's telling you if you are increasing your speed or not. It's telling you, okay, to lifting up the trail heel or the lead heel, in the backswing, did that help you to get a bigger range of motion to be able to increase your speed? It tells you right then and there. It tells you after the fact. So a lot of these training aids that put you in the right positions, you don't learn as much from them because they're doing it for you. If you're using a training aid that gives you information after the fact, it tells you if you performed it correctly and you had to do it completely on your own, you're going to have a much higher retention and a much faster rate of success and change if you're doing it that way. So training aids like video, where you look on video and then you perform the action, you look on video and you see if you did it right, and then you have to make the adjustment and learn how to do it on your own. So I would say video or devices like Swing Caddy 2 are probably the best. So Robert C says, what should my back foot be doing during the swing? If it slides or comes off the ground, could it be causing ground contact inconsistency? So what I see oftentimes of people whose back foot slides in the downswing is usually when I see it is because they're swinging very much upper body. They're not using the ground correctly. They're not getting a good weight shift. Their weight's it's on their lead side, it's on their trail side, and they're trying to pivot off of that, and then that slips. If you're getting your weight to your lead side and your momentum moving to your lead side, you're able to brace into that and push into the ground and rotate open. But if it's on the trail side and your momentum's moving that way, well, that foot's going to slip out. So it's most likely you're not getting a proper weight shift. And I've mentioned this video several times in today's office hours. The how to start your downswing video, the sumo step video, those two videos, search those videos on the website in the upper right-hand corner, use the search engine. And those two, the step drill is demonstrated in both of those videos. That is the best video or best drill for getting to your lead side properly in the swing. So that's what I would recommend. So Regis R says, on approach to greens, I have miss to the left, which is a pull, and that is a typical miss for me, and I tend to pull my driver also. So a pull is caused by a face that is closed at impact and a path that is too much out in. So if you're a right-handed golfer, which it sounds like it is, you said you're missing left with a pull, that means you're most likely coming over the top and your face is basically in line with your club path. So the path of the club, when people talk about out to in to out, they're talking about club path. That's the side-to-side movement of the club head through impact. If your path is out to in and your face is closed, that's going to be a pulled shot. So The best way to, I've mentioned this earlier, is the best way to fix any swing issue is to basically exaggerate the opposite. So it would be the opposite of an out to in swing. That'd be an in to out swing. I'd be trying to hit everything in to out as much as you can. Work through the 20-minute distance fix, the never slice again course. I know you said you're not slicing, but a pull is basically a product of the same issue of a slice. The only difference between a pull and a slice is on a pull, your face is closed. It's in line with your club path. And on a slice, the face is open to your club path. So your face might be square at impact. The ball might start straight, but then it curves off to the right because your path was out in. The face was open to the path. So everything that you do in that never slice again course is to get that club working more from the inside. Get to where you can hit some blocks out to the right. Get to where you can hit some shots out to the right that start to the right and then hook to the left with center face contact. Once you get that, then you can ease off of that a little bit. It's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Overdo it, then ease off of it. That's what we're trying to do here. Overdo that, ease off of it to get that to be more of a straighter shot. So never slice again course. That's what I would recommend. So Chris B says, do you recommend one-on-one unlimited review if just starting, or should I wait until full swing refining mode to do something like that? It's completely up to you. We offer the unlimited swing reviews for people that feel like they just want someone. I know it can all be very overwhelming. So what I basically do in my unlimited swing review program is we pinpoint the thing that is costing you the most strokes out on the course. I have a series of questions that I ask you, and we try to pinpoint that thing, and we work on that. It may not even be something that's in the Top Speed Golf system. The Top Speed Golf system, it's meant to be self-guided. It's meant to be able to do completely on your own. But if you're wanting some extra help, then unlimited swing reviews is going to be the right place to go. So, we may work on getting, I may take a look at your swing and say, hey, your spine looks pretty good. You're casting the club really bad though, and that's causing you to flip. I'm not saying that that's what's going on, but I'm just saying that might be what we would do first instead of, working through the stable fluid spine, because your spine might already be in pretty good shape. So it just depends, like I said, the program, we try to set it up to where you can go through it completely on your own, and be able to we tell you what to look for on camera and, how to go through it, but it's not always the easiest thing. If you've never filmed your camera before, or, it's just difficult to do sometimes. So if you're someone who's worked on your game quite a bit and you've looked at your swing on camera and kind of the ins and outs of that, the program's probably a lot easier for folks like that. But it really just depends on what's going on there. So I see we got so Chris B goes on to say, this is my first office hours. It was so cool. Thanks for answering my questions. No problem. Glad I could help. So we got a couple more questions here. I'm going to finish up right after Jan's question, and then we'll cut it off to there. It's pretty much 4:00 right now. So Sharon T says, hi, checking my swing video while listening to you. I still need to ease up on swinging too far back. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So glad. You got to be looking at that video. We can't always, feel isn't always real. You probably heard that several times. Feel isn't always real. You got to look at the camera. The camera is usually not going to lie to you. It's going to tell you exactly what's going on. So look at the camera and make sure that you're doing what you actually feel like you're doing. Otherwise, you may be, doing something completely different. So Jan R says, how tight do you hold the grip through impact? So with the trail hand, I want you to have as light a pressure as you possibly can. With that lead hand, so for right-handed golfers, that left hand, the first three fingers here, I want you to be putting a lot of pressure in there. I want you to feel like you're popping that grip off of the top. We can only swing the club as fast as the amount of pressure that we can put into that. So imagine, you can think about it this way. If I were to take the club and I were to just hold it as lightly as I possibly could, just enough to hold it in my hand, basically like this, basically just enough that I don't drop it. And I were to take that and I were to just whip this as hard as I could, but I didn't increase the amount of pressure that I put into the grip, well, that club would just go flying. There's no way I'd be able to hold on to it. So you've got to put pressure into the handle with that trail hand now, or sorry, with that lead hand. That's where you want to be putting all that pressure in there. Now the trail hand, it can't really keep up with that. So you don't want to be trying to push through with that trail hand, because what's actually going to be happening is you're probably going to be slowing down the club. Not to mention you're probably going to be flipping this club through impact, adding loft to the face, and that's not what you want to do either. So allow this club to kind of whip through with all that pressure going in that lead hand, and allow that trail hand to kind of be along for the ride, and not want to force. You'll look at a lot of tour players. You're going to see how their trail hand. I mean, you'll see a lot of guys. There's videos of Phil Mickelson where his hands like coming off, his trail hands like off of the club as he's coming through there, because he's trying to put such a small amount of pressure into it. So, if you're really pushing through and you're feeling a lot of pressure in that trail hand as you're coming in, odds are you may be not sequencing properly and things like that. So, everybody, thanks for joining me today. I'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I will see you all then.